This time on Vintage Steel Garage we carry on with a board racer clutch assembly. I can say with some confidence, with the power of video editing, at the end of this episode the clutch will be working on the board racer. Whether this episode takes me a year to make or not, I'm not quite sure at the moment. However, we'll press on and I'll show you where I've got up to. So I've got the engine back in, slid it forward 40mm, so if you have a look here now, you can see the engine is farther forwards, got the lace shaft back in, it's cleared the carburettor there, it's all bolted in, so I now need to come up with some sort of clutch mechanism somewhere around here. Now if you have a look over here at the CAD design board, you'll see I've done a highly detailed CAD drawing here, where I started off with some idea of a lever here with a ratio of 2:1, so it's sprung loaded here, so if you press down here it'll push up there, and when it pushes up that's engaging the clutch because it's putting pressure on it, and then when it's slack this wheel will slip. I took that a little bit further, that obviously the arm wouldn't be straight, it needs to be bent like this, and then the next stage was something along the lines of this, where we'd have a lever higher up where if you pull it, if that pulls that way that drops down, so that disengages the clutch, and then if you let go of it because it's sprung loaded it'll push back up and engage the clutch. So basically you need to pull a lever, disengage the clutch, let go of it, the clutch is in. So think along that lines, and bearing in mind I'm making use of what I've got in the garage. I have this old gearbox here which is Albion gearbox. I did actually buy this for this, and this would have solved all my problems, but it's actually the clutch is shot on it, so it would have been too much hassle trying to work this out and get this going, although it would have given me a 3-speed gearbox. Anyway, I may even come back to that, you never know what happens. So I've took the lever off here and I'm going to have a little play around with this and see if I can somehow fudge and fashion this to create the lever round here with a pulley on the end that when you pull it, it pushes up, engages the drive. When you pull it, it disengages the drive, and when you let go of it, it'll spring back up and engage the drive. So let me have a fudge around with this, come up with something, and I'll get back to you soon. Okay, so I think I've come up with an idea. I've just cut the drive belt there, so it gives me this drive line underneath what I'm looking for, where I want to put pressure on there. So if I put pressure there like that, that will be the drive engaged, and when it drops off it will slip. So I've cut this lever apart, which ironically I'd welded it and swapped it round like that to make the gear lever different for some other project, but I've cut it back and I'm going to weld it back up there like that. So that'll have a pulley on here, pivot there, and then the lever going up to the top. So I'm looking to maybe put a sort of a plate like this here, which will actually cut this rib off here, cut that off there, so instead of being a C it's just an L section, and it'll sit higher up and it'll give me a bit of a lip just snug underneath this engine here, but a lip higher up, which then, so if we imagine that is on the engine now, I can put a bolt through there, and then this is going to pivot here like this. So that's what I'm going to look at doing. So I've got another length for this, I'm going to cut down, take the engine out again, play around with that. That's got a kink in it, which I don't think I need that straight, so I'm going to heat that up and straighten that, and I'll come back when I've done that and show you what it's looking. So I've got this bit welded in place now, welded it down here and a couple of tacks on the back there, so this is giving this point where I can try and put a pivot into here. So let's get the engine back on and see how that looks. So I've got the engine back in. You can see I've got this bracket on the bottom now, which I'll probably maybe trim it nicely and have a bit of a slope down here or something once I've finished and decided what it's going to look like. So for now, just going to get this drive belt on just to try and give me some ideas of what I'm going to come up with. So that's the drive belt roughly in place. What can we come up with for some sort of lever? And what we've got lying around? Well, we've got this to play with, which is the bracket, and I've got this, which was, I think this was an idler gear bearing pulley on the actual lawnmower that we stripped down, so that'll keep it true to its form. So I'm looking for something like this. I'm going to have to change the angle of this lever. I think it's going to be too steep. I think it's going to have to be nearer 90 degrees. Or what I do, I make this longer. So in effect that ends up on there like that. That will probably come off with it. I think that's what the next thing I need to do is come up with this pulley on the end of here, and then that'll give me the point where I bolt this onto here. I think that's what I'm looking for now. Right, let's see what we can do to get these two somehow stuck together. So quite pleased with the progress with this now. So what we've done here, we've taken this post off this other arm, drilled a hole in here, welded it on the back. So that's now the idler gear. Now I will have to do some work on that because you can see it's stepped out, so I'll probably just machine that in the lathe flat all the way across, which will obviously change the diameter, or I may try and get a rubber wheel on it or something. So I'm thinking this is going to be pivoted about there, where I've marked the cross there, you can see, so that will go on there, and then when you pull it, it will go up, hold the tension in. When you let go of it, it will drop off. I'm try and cut a nick out of there, bend it back, and just open it a couple of degrees. So I want to alter the angle of this, make it a bit steeper. So I think what I'll do, cut a bit of a nick out of it, like that, and then that'll just open that up a little bit. So you can see I just hacksawed a little nick out of that. I'm just going to try and bend that back and see what that looks like. Right, so I've just closed that gap up there. You can see it's just changed the angle of it. Let's see what that looks like now. That means I can get that a little bit further in. I think the nearer I am to the middle of this belt, the better. Let's just think, if that's off, that puts the lever about there. Yeah, and then if we engage it, so we want it engaged, say there, that puts the lever there. Yeah, I think that's going to do. I need this not to be in line, I need it to come up, go across and then up. So let me work. So I've done a bit more work on this now, worked on this arm. So I've basically put a step in the arm there to clear the actual pulley, and it's one of them classics where you start off with something, you modify it, but it's so far modified from what it was to start off with, I maybe should have made one out of scratch. But as a lot of these things, you need something to start you off with an idea. So this started me off with an idea of a sort of a bell crank with a pulley, with a pivot in the middle. I've put the pulley on the end there. This was all sacrificed, or saved I should say, from the lawnmower, so that's on there. Probably needs a bit of work on it yet, and I might have to improve this because there's now a bit of play in here, I've noticed. And then this was the lever that I wanted to keep off the lawnmower gearbox. So let's get it all back together and see what it looks like, and see if it's going to work for us. So we'll put this nut on and just mock it all up and see if it looks like it's going to hit the spot. So let's just tighten this up here. As you probably spotted then, I haven't got the engine bolted in either, so I probably want to do that as well. So this is just really mocking it up yet again. You'll find we're doing anything like this, there's a lot of building it, stripping it down, building it, stripping it down. Right, so there's our pulley, our clutch lever if you like. So if that was to go around there, like that, and you pull the lever, that pushes up at the bottom. Let me just get around here out of the way. So yeah, so that's it, pushing the belt up. I mean, it's trying to lift the engine up as well at the moment. So probably the next thing to do is bolt the engine down, and let's see where we go from there. So after playing around a little bit, I think what I need is a drive belt that's 100mm longer than what I currently have, which I don't know if you can see, probably can't because my arm's in the way. So I need to try and connect these belts up but of course then I've got to allow for this to go up and engage, which will take some slack out of it. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go for 100mm. It's 100mm between the belts, so if I go for another 10mm, that'll give me 10mm more of play, and then I'll see what that does. So that would then allow some slippage. That's the theory. So I'll go for 110mm longer than what I currently have, which is a 757 belt, so I need an 857 belt if they make that in this profile, and then we'll get that on and see how that works. Right, so I need to order that part and then I'll get back to you. Okay, so I've moved on. Now I think I've got the clutch arrangement sorted and I just need to order a drive belt, a longer drive belt. I thought I'd do something about these guards with these shafts that were sticking out. So I've cut this shaft down and I thought what I'll do, I'll reuse these lawnmower drive belt covers. I've kept them because I thought they were coming useful for something, and I fashioned that for a guard there. So I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to leave it like that, all worn and patinaed. I think I quite like the look of that, and it serves its purpose from that point of view, so you can't get your foot in stuck in it. It's completely useless from this point of view because it's not covering the chain, but it sort of looks right and stops you getting your foot caught in there, doesn't it? So I think that'll do. So I'm just going to do something on the other side now. Like I say, it looks pretty good from this side. Well, I think it does. Not really bothered what anyone else thinks. Obviously from this point of view it's completely useless. As you can see, the chain's still sticking out, but it stops you getting your trousers caught in it, and that works. And now I just need to fashion something for this side, and I'm thinking along the lines of the larger one. So something like that, having that bit hooking over there. It won't cover the bottom, but I'll cut that bottom side out. So if I hook that on there, I'll cut this here, cut all the bottom of that out, so it'll just go over the top like that and give it some sort of protection. Or maybe I'll leave this side exposed. I'm not sure. Post a comment, see what you think. It's a drive belt this side, so I'm not as worried as the chain on the other side. I'm just not thinking that's looking quite as good. Might have to think about that one. Or maybe this one. No, see, I think that's too small. Unless I just go for something. Oh, that might work, mightn't it? Something like that. Just again, so it's keeping you away from it. Centered like that. Yeah, I'm thinking that might work. Doesn't cover the drive belt, but it keeps your leg away from the nasty bits. Not sure how I'll fasten it, but I'll come up with something, I'm sure. Okay, so a couple of days have passed. Drive belts have turned up, so I've got two of them in here. So let's see if these are going to be any good for what we want. Now I've got two different drive belts. One is 10mm wide, this one, and this one's 13mm wide. As probably anyone else watching this will have worked out by now, I am actually making this up as I go along. So we'll see if any of these fit. Now just as a comparison, this was the original drive belt and this is the new one of the same section. So you can see it is a little bit longer, but that is also because we've moved the drive forward. So let's see if I can get this drive belt on the other side. So what I'm hoping for from your angle, so you can see I'm turning the wheel there. The lace shaft is moving, but the actual engine is not turning. So hopefully when I put the drive belt on and engage the clutch, this will move round. So we'll see. It was me making up ordering the belt, so it could be a complete balls up this and not work at all. Or I could be very lucky. Right, so it's quite tight getting on to start off with, but we've got it in there now. You see that is just slipping a bit, so I can actually make that slip. So if I engage the drive, oh you beauty! Look at that, that's working. Pull that back. With a bit of assistance it slips. Engaged in. Let me turn this round and show you. I am excited. Okay, so I'll just show you from this side. So I've got this drive belt on here. You can see when I engage it, it pulls the tension on the belt, and when I let go of the slack. So we've got slack here now. I pull it and there's tension. So if I slacken it off, and I turn the back wheel, let me try and get to a point where I'm not stood in front of you. You can see the wheel is slipping. So that's over the normal direction of travel. It's slipping there. So that's slipping. There's a little bit of drag on that, but I think it's just because it can do. If I hold it, it soon stops. So I think that engine would soon spin over like that without engaging drive. So if that wheel was on the floor, I'm turning the engine over, there's nothing happening. Push the lever in. So we've got tension on the belt. We've got tension on the belt like that. Even just to about that point, you can see we're now making the wheel drive round. So it'll be interesting actually to see how many revolutions of the engine we need to get the wheel round once. That will be an interesting study, because then we could work out the gearing. So what I need is now is some way of holding that in. For now I suppose I could just nip the bolts up tight. So I've done what I said. I've got to the end of the episode and we've got a working clutch. I now need to work out actually what the gearing ratio is. I've worked out if I turn the engine over 7 times, the wheel will go round once, and it's actually the circumference of the wheel is 7 foot, so that's easy to remember to go in the house. So engine goes round 7 times, wheel goes round once, and we move 7 feet. So what I need to look at is if the engine is doing 2000 RPM, let's call it 2010 RPM, because that's easier, the wheel will go round 700 times. 700 times by 700 times 7 feet is 4,900 feet. So we need to work out what the speed is anyway. So I'll do some maths, get back to you, and we'll see how the gearing is worked out. But I think we have a clutch, as I said at the end of the episode. So the next episode, we're going to go for a ride and probably kill ourselves. So please like, subscribe, so you can see that before I do kill myself on it. And we'll talk to you later. Thank you. Bye. So just before I upload this video, I've done some basic maths and I think I've got the gearing right, which is either genius or luck. You decide. Anyway, have a look at this. So if you look at my rubbish drawing here, the simple principle on the gearing for the engine is if this is the engine, this is the lay shaft, and this is the back wheel with the cog. So there's a ratio of 3 to 1 here, reduction. That then goes ratio of 3 to 1 there, which is I've confirmed on the bike turning the engine. If I turn the engine over 7 times, the wheel goes round once. It also coincides that the actual circumference of the wheel is 7 feet, so it's easy to remember. So engine goes round 7 times, the wheel goes round once, and we go 7 feet. So here's a basic grade 1 maths question. So if I was an RPM, the wheel will go around 142 times. The distance is travelled times by 7 gets you to 1,000, so we're back there to 1,000 feet. That's 1,000 feet per minute. So we times the 1000 by 60 to get how many feet we do in an hour, which would be 60,000. Well, I've got 59 there, but it's near enough. So we've done 60,000 feet in an hour. We then divide it by a mile. There's 5,280 feet, so we divide this number by 5,280 and we get 11.4 miles per hour. If we do the same at 2,000, we end up at 22 miles an hour. If we do it at 3,000 RPM, but I don't think the engine will do 3,000 RPM, we do 34 miles per hour. It's more likely the maximum RPM is 2,500, which takes us to 28 miles per hour, which is more than fast enough. So now the only question will be, is there enough torque in the engine to move my fat ass down the road on it? So that will be the next test, but it looks like we have a working clutch. It looks like we have the gearing right. What could possibly go wrong? Please watch next time, and we'll talk to you then. Bye.